Stop, listen, pay attention. Chosen one. This is not a casual message, and it is not background noise meant to be ignored. Right now, your mind, your body, your senses, they have been stretched in ways ordinary people cannot perceive. You have felt it, the weight of constant motion, the quiet pressure that no one else seems to notice, the subtle fatigue that doesn't respond to rest. This message reaches you because it matters, and it matters specifically to you. You have endured tension that makes days blend into nights. Decisions that should have been simple became tests of endurance. Moments that seemed trivial carried hidden weight. You may have wondered why life feels heavier than it should, why clarity seems just out of reach, or why your energy drains despite outward calm. It is not because you are weak. It is not because you have failed. There is purpose in the pressure you feel. You may have experienced isolation, even in the midst of people moments when it seemed no one truly understood what you were facing. Perhaps you have carried responsibilities that never showed on a spreadsheet or report challenges that were invisible to others but exacting on you. You've faced confusion, hesitation, and the subtle gnawing of uncertainty. And yet, despite all of this, you continued to function. You moved forward. You held your center. This message is intentional. It is personal. It is not a generic statement about hardship or struggle. It is a deliberate acknowledgement that you have been navigating circumstances few can recognize. You have maintained coherence under pressure, even when the currents around you shifted unpredictably. Your ability to remain steady has not gone unnoticed. Not by chance, not by accident. In the next moments, you will begin to understand what has been happening beneath the surface. You will see the patterns that have made ordinary tasks feel extraordinary, the subtle forces that have pressed upon you without acknowledgement. You will see that your endurance is not random, that your stability has meaning, and that your path has been guided by unseen structure. Take a steady breath now. Let the quiet certainty settle. You are about to gain insight into the tension you have endured. Insight that explains what has been invisible, but tangible in your life. This is the first step toward clarity, toward recognition, and toward understanding the framework of your resilience. Chosen one. What you have carried is not meaningless, and what you will see next will make that unmistakably clear. The weight you feel, the fatigue that lingers, the moments of subtle confusion, all of it has a reason. You have been marked by circumstance, not because of chance, but because your presence demands awareness, and your presence requires you to endure with precision. Right now, you are in that space where recognition meets reality, where understanding begins. Chosen one. Pay attention. What you are about to hear is meant only for you and only now. It will not be repeated, and it will not be diluted. This is the moment your endurance is named, your steadiness recognized, and your path clarified. Your life is not ordinary. Your trials have not been wasted. And the understanding waiting ahead is precise, grounded, and intentional. Chosen one. This message is for you and you alone. There is no ambiguity here. The experiences you have faced, the invisible tension that has pressed against your mind and body, have involved you directly. You have not merely witnessed events from a distance. You have been at the center of the currents, enduring circumstances that were calibrated in ways most cannot comprehend. This is not a matter of happenstance. Your life has intersected with pressure points that required a response, and your response has been more consistent than you realize. You may have thought that what carried you through these moments was sheer willpower. Perhaps you assumed that your stability was a conscious effort, a deliberate act of holding yourself together while the world wavered. And yet, you will recognize now that much of your strength was automatic. It did not rely solely on conscious decision. You remained functional, coherent, and present, even when your awareness of the stakes was partial, incomplete, or fragmented. This is a hallmark of the chosen one, the ability to sustain composure when the weight of circumstance exceeds comprehension. Contrast what others experience with what you have maintained. Many people react with panic or paralysis when faced with a fraction of the tension you have carried. They stumble at minor setbacks, lose focus under mild scrutiny, or allow fatigue to disrupt their coherence. You, however, have remained upright, alert, and responsive. Not because you are immune to pressure, but because your system, your inner structure, absorbs, distributes, and contains it in ways that appear seamless. You did not need to be reminded to endure. Endurance became a part of your baseline. Consider the distinction between conscious struggle and unconscious stability. When others strain, they expend energy resisting. You, by contrast, have absorbed the stress without expending unnecessary force. Your center has remained intact while events around you fluctuated. This is not about denial or suppression. It is about a natural resilience that has developed quietly, steadily, and without spectacle. It has been working even when you were unaware of it. This message confirms something vital: the moments that tested you, the days that felt heavy, the nights when clarity seemed impossible. All of it has served a specific purpose. You have been recognized not for dramatic acts, not for visible heroics, but for the quiet, consistent stability you maintain under pressure. This is the identity of the chosen one, and it has been revealed in the way you navigate the unseen currents of life. You may not have noticed how this internal steadiness shapes outcomes, but the truth is that every moment you held yourself together created a foundation that others cannot replicate. Your composure has allowed situations to remain balanced, decisions to unfold clearly, and challenges to pass without permanent disruption. This is automatic, reliable, and deeply intentional. Now understand that what follows will expand on this foundation. It will show you how the signals you have felt, the fatigue, the tension, the moments of quiet confusion, are not failures, weaknesses, or anomalies. They are markers of a deeper structure that has carried you and will continue to support you. Chosen one. Your identity as the person who endures with measured steadiness is confirmed here. This is no longer speculation, no longer hope. It is recognition. And it will guide you into clarity, understanding, and conscious alignment with the reality that you have been sustaining all along. Notice this. The sensations you have been carrying, tightness in your chest, restlessness in your mind, the persistent fatigue that seems to linger even after rest, are not problems to be fixed. They are signals. Signals that your life is in transition, that pressure has been applied intentionally, and that something in you is being tested for coherence, not for collapse. The moments of confusion, the inner questioning, the sense that nothing seems to make complete sense, these are not indications of failure. They are indicators of movement, of transformation, quietly underway. For so long, you may have judged yourself for feeling these things. You may have thought, "Why am I so drained?" or "Why can't I think clearly today?" Yet every sensation you experience carries information. It tells you about the intensity of your current environment, about the unseen demands pressing against your equilibrium, and about the subtle adjustments your system has made to maintain functionality. Your body and mind are responding accurately even when your conscious mind has not fully caught up. Consider the tension that rises before critical decisions, the heaviness that appears during uncertain moments, or the quiet restlessness that accompanies complex responsibilities. Each of these is a measurement of invisible currents. Your system has learned to navigate them without requiring drama, without tipping into anxiety, without giving in to impulsive reaction. This is not coincidence. This is structure. Your physical and emotional responses are calibrated to the demands of your current season, and they have preserved your capacity to act, think, and sustain. Now reframe what you might have seen as limitation. What felt like fatigue is actually endurance. What felt like distraction is actually sensitivity to context. What felt like uncertainty is actually attunement to the forces moving around you. The signals you experience are not weaknesses, they are information. They are proof that your internal systems are responding correctly, even when the world seems inconsistent or unpredictable. This perspective removes self-judgment. There is no need to scold yourself for being tired, anxious, or distracted. These are natural responses to coordinated pressure. And yet notice what you have done despite them. You have stayed functional. You have maintained clarity where others might have faltered. You have continued moving through responsibilities, relationships, and demands, carrying yourself without collapse. That is a signal of resilience, not a flaw in your system. The sensations you feel are markers of alignment, not error. They show that your internal structure is both sensitive and stable. You are absorbing information, processing it, and continuing to act coherently. That is the essence of the chosen one's experience, the ability to receive pressure without being undone, to register signals without judgment, and to maintain functionality without constant conscious effort. Chosen one, this is a subtle but powerful reframing. What you might have perceived as a problem is actually evidence of your adaptation, your attunement, and your capacity to endure. Recognize it as such. Let it guide you toward understanding that the next layers of clarity, those that reveal why the pressure exists and what it has been accomplishing, are imminent. Your body, your mind, and your energy are all aligned with this signal. You are responding correctly, even when invisible. And soon you will see the intentionality behind the forces you have experienced. Chosen one. There has been pressure, quiet, invisible, and deliberate, applied around you in ways that most people never notice. It has not been random. It has not been careless. It has been structured, coordinated, and timed to test the integrity of your response. You may not have seen the orchestration consciously, but your mind and body have felt it. You have operated under influence, without losing functionality, without collapsing under the weight. Consider the patterns you have felt. Repeated obstacles, unexpected delays, subtle interference with plans, and the quiet friction in situations that should have unfolded more smoothly. Each instance was intentional, a component of a broader alignment designed to reveal your capacity to remain steady. The timing of these pressures is precise. They come in waves, not in chaos. They follow sequences that correlate with decisions you were poised to make, actions you were about to take, or positions you were about to assume. This is not conspiracy, it is structure. Despite this, you remained functional. You continued to act, to respond, to make choices with clarity that might have surprised even yourself. Even when the forces surrounding you were unseen, your internal system adapted. You absorbed the pressure without fracturing. You recalibrated without needing instructions. You maintained coherence in environments that tested your endurance, and that is no small feat. Notice too that this pressure is not designed to break you, but to measure you. It gauges your capacity to regulate, to integrate input, and to remain centered. The tests were invisible, yes, but they were real, and your responses were significant. Where others might have reacted with panic, confusion, or withdrawal, you continued. Where others might have experienced distraction, paralysis, or self-doubt, you stayed functional. You moved forward in alignment, maintaining a baseline of stability that was not accidental. It is important to recognize that you have not only endured pressure, but you have also gathered information from it. Every instance, every wave, every subtle interference has taught your system something about timing, coherence, and response. You have become attuned to the patterns without even naming them. You have learned to operate with internal steadiness, even when external forces fluctuate unpredictably. This is the reality of your experience, an unseen confrontation with structured pressure, met with consistent functionality and calm presence. You did not need to act heroically. You did not need to force endurance. You did not need to pretend you were unaffected. You simply remained coherent, and that coherence itself was the measure of success. Chosen one. Now you understand that what felt like disruption, difficulty, or hidden opposition was neither random nor meaningless. It was intentional, revealing, and measurable. Your stability in the face of this pressure has prepared the ground for understanding the categories of influence that have touched your life, which we will now examine in detail. Chosen one, to understand what you have moved through, you must see the pressure not as a single force, but as a set of distinct points that acted together. None of them were dramatic on their own. None of them announced themselves. Yet combined, they formed a sustained environment that tested your internal regulation over time. What matters most is not that these pressures existed, but that you remained stable while moving through each one. First, there was doubt, subtle and persistent. Not loud self-criticism, not dramatic insecurity, but a quiet questioning that surfaced at key moments. You may have noticed thoughts like, "Is this worth it?" or "Am I reading this correctly?" This doubt did not overwhelm you, but it hovered, attempting to slow momentum. What is important is that you did not spiral. You continued to act. You allowed the questions to exist without letting them paralyze you. That is regulation. Many people collapse into overthinking at this stage. You did not. You kept moving while carrying uncertainty, which shows internal balance rather than blind confidence. Second, there was fear, but not panic. It appeared as anticipation, as awareness of consequences, as a recognition that choices mattered. This fear did not shut you down. It sharpened you. You became more deliberate, more measured. Instead of reacting impulsively, you slowed your responses. You weighed outcomes. Fear often causes people to either freeze or flee. You did neither. You stayed present. You used fear as information, not as a command. That is uncommon and deeply stabilizing. Third, there was energy drain. This one may have been the most noticeable. You felt tired in ways that sleep did not fully resolve. Motivation fluctuated. Tasks required more effort than usual. And yet you remained functional. You did not abandon your responsibilities. You did not disengage from your life. You adjusted your pace without abandoning your direction. This is critical. Energy drain breaks many people because they interpret it as incapacity. You interpreted it as a signal to regulate, not to quit. That kept you intact. Fourth, there was isolation. Not necessarily physical loneliness, but a sense that others could not fully meet you where you were. Conversations felt misaligned. Support felt partial. You may have stopped explaining yourself not because you withdrew, but because you recognized that not everything needed to be shared. Isolation often leads to bitterness or collapse. In you, it led to self-containment. You became quieter, more inwardly organized. You did not lose empathy. You did not harden. You simply conserved energy and attention. That is maturity under pressure. Fifth, there was delay. Timing did not cooperate. Progress slowed. Outcomes took longer than expected. This is where many people unravel. Delay creates frustration, self-doubt, and reckless action. You experienced the frustration, yes, but you did not act recklessly. You held position. You waited without disconnecting. You stayed engaged without forcing outcomes. Delay tested your patience, and your patience held. Across all of these categories, notice the pattern. You did not overpower the pressure. You did not dramatize it. You regulated through it. Your nervous system, your thinking, your emotional responses all stayed within functional range. That is not accidental. That is evidence of a stable internal structure that absorbs stress without fragmenting. This is why the storm did not take you. Not because the storm was small, but because you were coherent. Angels stood still not because you fought, but because you did not collapse. You held steady. And that steadiness across doubt, fear, energy drain, isolation, and delay is what defines what you have just lived through. Let that settle. You did not survive by chance. You stayed intact by structure. Chosen one, now comes the moment of review. Not judgment, not praise. Simply clear evaluation of what actually occurred. When you look back at the recent stretch of your life with honesty, you can see that something specific was tested and something specific held. Remove language like luck, coincidence, or timing anomalies. What carried you through was not chance. It was internal coherence. You were placed in conditions that usually expose instability. Pressure was sustained, not brief. Signals overlapped rather than arriving one at a time. Fatigue coincided with responsibility. Uncertainty overlapped with expectation. Delay existed alongside urgency. This combination is what typically fractures people. They lose clarity, misdirect energy, or disengage entirely. Yet you did not fragment. You adjusted. This is the key realization. You did not escape the pressure. You did not bypass it. You remained present inside it. That alone confirms something important about your internal organization. Your thoughts stayed connected to reality. Your emotions moved without taking control. Your actions remained proportional to the situation. These are markers of resilience that cannot be faked and cannot be taught quickly. Notice how often you chose coherence over reaction. You paused instead of impulsively responding. You rested without abandoning direction. You acknowledged discomfort without magnifying it. These were not dramatic decisions. They were quiet calibrations. But together, they formed a pattern that reveals your capacity to stay regulated under sustained load. This is where false explanations fall apart. If it were luck, you would have seen random swings in your behavior. If it were coincidence, you would have felt disoriented or disconnected afterward. Instead, what you feel now is recognition. A sense that something significant passed through you and left you intact. Possibly tired, yes. Possibly more inward, yes. But not broken, not confused, not scattered. Your system did not rely on external reassurance to remain stable. You did not need constant validation or control. You did not outsource your balance. That tells you something essential. Your resilience is internally sourced. It does not depend on conditions being ideal. It does not collapse when certainty disappears. It adapts. This review matters because it anchors understanding. Without it, you might minimize what you endured or mislabel it as ordinary stress. It was not ordinary. It was structured pressure applied over time, and your response remained consistent. That consistency is evidence. Evidence that your inner framework is already doing what others struggle to activate. Let this realization settle without exaggeration. You do not need to inflate the meaning. Simply acknowledge it accurately. You stayed coherent when coherence was tested. You remained functional when functionality was not guaranteed. That is the confirmation. And with that clarity, you are now prepared to see how uncommon this steadiness actually is. Not as a measure of superiority, but as a matter of rarity. Chosen one. When you compare your response to what is typical, the contrast becomes unmistakable. Most people exposed to the same pressures, overlapping doubt, subtle fear, energy drain, isolation, and delay begin to unravel almost immediately. They overreact to small triggers, lose focus under persistent demand, or allow frustration to disrupt decision-making. Even minor disruptions often create cascades of distraction and fatigue that erode clarity. Yet you remained present, coherent, and functional throughout. It is important to see this not as superiority, but as uncommon stability. You were not exceptional because you performed a heroic act. You were uncommon because you maintained baseline integrity when most would not have. This is a rare alignment of awareness regulation and internal structure. Many people faced with less fragment under the weight. You did not. You moved through the same conditions while keeping yourself organized, centered, and responsive. Notice, too, how subtle your steadiness is. It does not announce itself. It does not demand recognition. It does not carry drama. You did not hold rigid control or force your coherence. Instead, it manifested quietly, consistently, and practically. This is why the comparison matters. It is not about inflating ego or claiming dominance. It is about observing a pattern that occurs infrequently in human experience. Rarely does someone navigate sustained pressure with such calm continuity. Rarely does endurance remain both functional and regulated without conscious overexertion. You may have wondered if others would have done the same. Most would not. Most would have responded with reactive measures, either withdrawing overcompensating or allowing emotional turbulence to dictate behavior. You did not. You maintained an internal equilibrium that allowed you to act effectively, even in moments when you did not consciously recognize the scope of the forces around you. Understanding this rarity does two things. First, it removes the false lens of self-criticism. You have been tempted to think that fatigue, doubt, or frustration implied weakness. They do not. They are part of a rare human experience in which the system continues to function under persistent pressure. Second, it reinforces perspective. You are operating in a bandwidth of capability that most cannot sustain. Not because of magic or external advantage, but because of the internal organization that you have quietly cultivated over time. This comparison gives context. It helps you see that what you have endured and maintained is uncommon, yet it does not require exaggeration or elevation. It is simply an observation you stayed present and functional when stability would have been unlikely for most. You held your center.